Welcome to a Friday Reads, the first one of the month, and that's because I was on a trip last week, which also means I am sick now because I cannot catch a break this year. It's fine. I'm doing okay, I don't think I sound very different, but if I do, I've got a lot of congestion up in here. Just a lot of it. But my energy's actually been okay, my fatigue's not been too bad, so I've been able to read, and part of that is what I've chosen to read this week as well. And so yeah, there's only one book that I can't talk to you guys about that I read. That was a really big surprise. I'm excited when I can reveal that information to you all soon. That secret project's not taking nearly as long. That will be revealed soon. But I have finished 2 things, and I'm in the middle of 3 things, and I have 1 book that I hauled. I'm in the middle of 4 things, sorry. One of them is just like my never-ending book that I've been reading all year. And so we're going to get into all of that, starting with the first thing I finished, and that's The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. I've said this many times. I've said this in many a favorite author video. She's a favorite author. Like, she's so good. Like, truly astounding how she can create books that I love reading. I actually read this on most of my flight to Colombia. And I wasn't expecting to because I read it before the trip because I wanted to make sure it was done before a book club that was supposed to be this week, but then I couldn't even go to the book club because I was sick. But regardless, it was still a great time. So wonderful. I feel like, though, I need to set expectations for this book if it is on your radar, because I do think for some people this could be quite triggering, not as cathartic as it was for me. So this is a story of this woman, Tookie. She's indigenous, she lives in Minneapolis, and when we meet her, she's telling a story about her past, how she ended up in jail for a while, and how she got to where she is now, where she has a husband, kind of a stepdaughter, and she works at a bookstore because she's really good at sales and she loves to read. And the back of the book hook is that one of their most annoying customers passes away but is still haunting Tookie at the bookstore. That is a part of the story that is definitely there. There's definitely that general magical realism, spiritualism that Louise Erdrich sometimes laces into her works. But actually, this story runs from like November 2019 to November 2020. And it runs in our contemporary time. This isn't another secondary world, alternative timeline. No, it's our timeline. And so that's kind of what I want people to have a heads up on. I really loved it, watching this character in their bookstore respond to COVID. And if you missed it, it's in Minneapolis, which is where the George Floyd situation really kicks off. And seeing these characters, this family, this community respond to these events that were just such a captured moments in time. And I can pretty much assure that a lot of this was Louise Erdrich processing this, because if you don't know, she owns a bookstore, I believe, in that area. So she was definitely probably processing this while writing this book. And for me, it was cathartic. I'm far enough away from how anxiety-inducing and stressful 2020 was for me. I mean, I say this right now, having the virus that was plaguing us in 2020, like, it was something that was cathartic, and I'm really appreciative that this author decided to capture her interpretation of this moment in time for her community, because as I've always says, she's a community builder. She builds such vibrant communities and characters that feel so real. I will say this isn't my favorite community she's written. That might still be La Rose. Because it took me a long time for some of the characters to stop blending together for me, like a lot of the people she worked with at the bookstore. But it was so good. I just really loved it. I love reading Louise Erdrich, though. Like, I'm really biased. The way that she wordsmiths works really well in my brain, just every time. And then the one that I spent basically my entire trip slowly reading, because I didn't get a lot of reading time because we were busy planning the wedding and sightseeing and spending time with my dad, who I only get to see like every 3 to 4 years. So, reading wasn't a big priority, although I did have this view off of the balcony in my room. So I did read looking at that quite a bit because it was just nice. Or just, sometimes I just stared at it. I love mangroves. Like, I just love that. This was amazing. Anyways, but I read Chain of Thorns, and I finished it on my flight back. And so this is the 3rd book in the Last Hours series. I wonder why it's called The Last Hours. The other series I kind of think I understood the names, but this one I don't really know. And I will say that I loved the first 65% of this. I was like, oh, is this going to finally be like that 4.5 star Cassandra Clare for me? And no, it's still just a 4 star because it's just too long. And I think what she didn't do to make it work for me with this length is that the first 60% is such good relationship drama. We have all of the couples we're following, and they're all having great moments of tension and payoff and catharsis. And then, around, the 2/3 mark, almost everyone is in a position where you understand where all the relationships are at. So there's not really tension there. So now the tension shifts completely to the plot. And as I have said, the Cassandra Clare plots are not why I read Cassandra Clare, and I was like, this is fine, but why are we doing this? Why are we in this setting again that we already saw in Mortal Instruments, and I don't care, and I don't care about this evil person or that situation. And so I think if she had woven that better, like paced it differently so that those dramatic tensions were still a part of the main plot further into the book, I might have been okay with the 800-page mark. That said, this book did not need to be 800 pages. So, per usual, I like the second to last book in the Cassandra Clare series more than the last book, but there were a lot of great moments in Chain of Thorns for me. I had a great time. It is just, I don't know, if you... I'm surprised because I do think a lot of Cassandra Clare fans don't like Chain of Thorns. And I don't know if maybe they just were hoping for something different. Like, this reads like every other Cassandra Clare I've read, except for better character interactions and character work, maybe a more fleshed out plot. Like, it is more improved. She has improved with every book that I've read. The only thing I wish is that they were not this long, because I don't think they deserve to be. And, or if they're going to be this long, we need to pace out the drama and the plot a little more evenly, because I just don't think her plots are that strong or gripping, in my opinion, but I'm not a plot-driven person, so. But I finished it, so sometime this year I'll read Master Artificers and I'll make a Cassandra Clare video for reasons that are beyond me. I never really saw myself ever doing that, but here I am. I've read a lot. And we were actually discussing in the Discord that one of the biggest problems I had when I was doing the secret project is the thing I wanted to talk about most when I was reading Cassandra Clare was not the books themselves. Like, the books themselves I was able to chat with some friends about and stuff like that. No, it was the audiobook narration and the journey I went on. But that's for another time. But that was a trip. Like, I was really astounded at how many narrators I had to listen to over the course of 9 books. It was crazy. So those are the 2 things I finished. I am still in the middle of Open Veins of Latin America. We finished, finally, Chapter 2, which, Chapter 2 is, like, really long. It's like that much of the book, and it's dense, and it's depressing. And it's depressing because it is so repetitive. We just keep looking at different agricultural things and what it did to different communities and over different time periods. And the repetitiveness is intentional because it truly is just the same cycle of resource abuse over and over and over again, and the lack of investing in the local area to form an industry. It's just, yeah. Anger inducing, it's frustrating, but it's really revealing. I actually am so glad I've read a lot of this before I went to South America again, just to really, like, I don't know, inform myself. I still need to learn a lot more. I actually did go to a really cool museum. Most of it was in Spanish, so obviously a lot of it went over my head, but I did read the plaques that I could, and it was specifically about Cartagena, which changed many hands during colonialism. But it's just really revealing. Like, you know, I think a lot of us always wonder, why do certain regions have the economies they do? And to me, as someone who's not in economics, I'm like, economics is so abstract. Like, I know a lot of people have issues with, like, algebra and calculus. Economics, to me, is, like, truly a made-up thing. And, like, this kind of enforces that. It's just, like, it was just... By all accounts, South America has the resources, and we just keep taking them and then not paying them what they're worth and paying other people. It's just... Anyways, this is dense, but written really well. I do recommend it. It's informing. And obviously, as I've said in previous videos, it obviously has its own bias. But I think it's an important bias because the bias we've had in the United States is just like the opposite propaganda. So, you know, yeah. Alrighty. Next thing I'll talk about that I'm in the middle of, Far from the Light of Heaven by Tade Thompson. I only listened to this in one session so far. I'm like 110 pages in, and I did it while I was cleaning the house. Because we came home from the trip, and before I got really sick, I'm like, I need to vacuum and do all this laundry, because we thought that my cat might be sick with something that we needed to clean up stuff from, but I don't think that's the case anymore. Regardless, I did a lot of cleaning and listened to the first 100 pages of this. And I don't dislike it, but I'll be honest, if I wasn't reading this for our patron buddy read, I would have DNF'd it. I just don't care that much. We have Shell, Lawrence, and what's his name, Finn, and then 2 other auxiliary characters that I can't remember right now. And there's this event that happens on this spaceship where suddenly 31 people are dead and the AI's not working, and that Shell wakes up, and that's when we get the detective Finn and his partner, and Lawrence hears about it, and like Shell is the daughter of a man he once knew, and so they're all together on this ship. And things keep going weird, and in theory the murderer is still alive on the ship. And I think I'm supposed to be tense about that. And I'm just not. So that's kind of a problem, right? Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a writing style thing. Or again, I'm not a murder mystery girly, and maybe that's it. Even though like, if I was watching this as, like, a TV show or, like, a one-off episode in a TV show, like a Doctor Who episode, or if I was watching the movie, I think I'd like it, but as, like, a 300-page book, maybe it's just not the right media for me for this type of story. I also have no idea what's happening with this wolf. The wolf has been introduced, and I'm confused about it. But so are they, so, like, that's fair. So, I don't know. We'll see how this goes. I haven't had audiobook time since then because I'm listening to the audiobook. What is nice is, like, this is some really big font on the pages. So it's not actually really, I think, an overwritten book. I'm just not vibing with his style, which is unfortunate. The other thing I'm in the middle of is Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. Because I'm actually, so besides Far From the Light of Heaven, I'm doing 2 rereads this week because my brain wanted them. I do need them for live shows that are coming up, and also, you know, when I'm sick, predictability is nice, right? Like, knowing what's coming. So, Golden Sun. I'm a fourth of the way through, I believe, at this point. And truly, I think I know enough to be way more stressed than I was on the first read. Because I'm like, oh, something's going to happen here, but I can't remember what. Because I truly remember so little. But every time I'm in a moment, I'm like, oh, yeah, I think, wait, what? And then the shoe drops, and it's just over and over again. I will say, I totally forgot about some... lazy maybe isn't the right word, but repetitive narrative motivation happened in this book that I forgot about in terms of Darrow, and I just kind of wish it didn't happen because I don't think it was necessary for Darrow's motivation as a character. I just feel like it cheapens him as a character. I just don't think it serves him to have these motivations lined up to be as strongly as they are, or to, like, kind of come out as shock value. And I think that's the thing, it's like shock value for the character, and I think Darrow deserves better in terms of, like, how this story was crafted. So we'll see. I'm sure when we do the live show with Leanna and Alex at the end of the month, we'll unpack that in some more detail, and maybe I'll be convinced one way or the other. But regardless, so many twists and turns, and I'm always stressed for poor Darrow, because I do think he's in a rough position, truly, in this book. And I don't remember what happens. I don't remember. And every time I remember reading it, every time I thought I had a soft place to land, we didn't get to land there for long. So it's comfort in that, like, I know how the trilogy ends. I just don't know how we get there. And then the other one I actually do remember really well, and that's Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. This is probably my 4th reread, who knows. And it's kind of actually the point of, like, I remember so many scenes so vividly that I have to tell myself, stop thinking about the scene that's coming, Angela, read the scene you're in. I keep doing that, but it's really comforting. It is one of my comfort reads, and it has a lot of the tropes that I really gravitate towards as an adult. And I did read this when I was a teenager for the first time, but we've got the, you know, we have to build stuff from the ground up trope, which I'm a huge fan of. I don't know what to call that. I always call it the build the boat trope or the fix the boat trope, but, you know, we have Elantris itself, and one of our characters ends up in Elantris, kind of cursed by the Shroud, and he's like, well, how the status quo is in Elantris is depressing, and yes, we're in a bad place, but I want to try and build something here. I love that. We have Serene, who comes to this nation. She's supposed to marry the character that got thrown into Elantris, and suddenly she is quote-unquote married for political reasons, but now, you know, doesn't have a husband and is in a foreign court, so she's trying to find her position, trying to maybe help the dream that her husband had before he left. And so I really like her forming connections and teamwork, and I just love Serene. Like, she's so fun. I really identify with her. Like, I just really like Serene. She's great. And then the perspective that I like more and more on each reread is Hrathen. As a kid, I didn't like him because I don't think he's a character that as a kid you care about, because he is like existential crisis middle-aged man. And so as I approach middle age, I align more and more with his issues, because he's this man from this really hierarchical, strict religion coming to save this land before his home country invades, so he needs to convert all these people. And just, like, his relationship to his faith, his struggles with right and wrong and what he's done with his past, and how he chooses to make the decisions he does. I really like him, and I like him more and more. And so, I don't know, like, for me, this is still just such a solid work. I know a lot of people are like, debut Sanderson syndrome and all of that, but even thematically, I enjoy this more than the Mistborn trilogy, in terms of especially at least our discussions on government systems and the effect on the people, and how to change things or how to respond to them when you benefit from a system that tears down others. Because when you are looking at this 10 years before this book takes place, there was a completely different government system than what we have now. And what we have now is basically reverting people back into a really intense form of feudalism. And how does that affect the general populace that remembers a more prosperous time? I think it's so much more interesting than some of the questions Sanderson asks politically in Stormlight or Mistborn. We'll see if that holds on this reread, as I kind of am latching on to that more than I normally do. But yeah, I really like it. I really do. And Galadin is fantastic. He's not a main character, but he's in Elantris with Rao, and I just gosh, I love him. He's so great. And it's just comforting. It truly is a very comfortable read. Not everything's done perfectly because we still do have Sanderson's first attempt at writing an autistic character, and it definitely falls into the tropes of I don't know what it's exactly called, but the idea that there is magic related to someone's autism. It's not the best representation by a long shot, and Sanderson's talked about it in many a blog and video. So that still exists here. I know some people don't like the dialogue. I love the dialogue. So if you have similar tastes to me, don't let that deter you. It's just fun. I just love Elantris. I just love it. I think the live show will be on my channel first weekend of April. When I have a link, I'll let you know. So those are all the things I believe I'm in the middle of. I don't know what I'll read next. I have one more secret project book I need to pick up, and I need to continue from Far From the Light of Heaven. That's the one I probably will for sure be next week, just because I haven't been prioritizing time at all for it. And then I do want to read the new Tea Kingfisher. So that's for sure on my radar very, very, very soon. The book that I did get, though, is in Spanish. I got while I was in Colombia at Parque. It was it's near this clock tower that's pretty big in Cartagena. But I've been to a lot of cities where you buy stuff on the street. There's a lot of hustling, a lot of haggling. I've done that a lot. I've traveled quite a bit. This is the first time I've been places where there are just a bunch of books everywhere. People were selling books in Spanish everywhere on the street. I only picked up one, and it was Gabriel Garcia Marquez, one of his, I think this is his second work, El Coronel del Tiene Quien Le Escriba. I don't know what this is about. I don't even really understand the title, but it's very short. The font's pretty big. And I got as much as I could have a conversation with someone with my limited Spanish, I had a pretty good conversation with the bookseller. And so I figured I wanted to buy one book in Spanish while I was out of country. And that's what I did. And I was going to have another book, too, because I was going to go to my bookstore Monday to get The Faithless by C.L. Clarke, because that's out. But I'll have to wait till I'm not sick to do that. Granted, I already read the book. I loved it, in case you didn't know. So, yeah, that's been our life. Although, so Ryan's also sick. For once he got me sick. Normally I get sick, and then he never gets sick from me. But this time he got sick, and he got me sick. So tables be turned. But we've been watching a lot. And I mean a lot of the Batman animated, not Batman, just DC animated movies. And why are they so fun and the live actions are so not fun? I'm just endlessly annoyed. And animation is the best media for superhero stuff. I've liked everything superhero in animated form better than live action, even including the CW TV shows, which I do like. I think they're fun. Well, they're fun for the first 2 seasons, which can be said about a lot of episodic things, right? Sometimes they just jump the shark eventually. But yeah, and then also if you haven't watched Invincible, which is a different, it's not DC on Amazon, really love that. So I love animated superhero things. The Amazing Spider-Man multiverse, so good. So I've been watching these, and I'm just so annoyed, because the more I think about the casting they made for superheroes, the more I'm you did the casting so well, and then you just forgot to write a good script, or forgot that things don't need to be hyper realistic. Or maybe that's a thing people really want. People really want gritty realism in their superhero content, but I would say however they accomplished it did not work. Because after you have the Batman Nolan movies, almost everything else is fairly forgettable and not well accomplished. I think some of them are more fun than others. I like the first Wonder Woman, and the Aquaman was campy and okay. But oof. I'm still mad about Man of Steel. I'm still mad about it. And that movie came out so long ago. But I'm still mad about it, because Henry Cavill is ideal Superman. And I know now, because he did The Witcher, he could do it. Anyways, I'm really enjoying watching those with Ryan. Just really annoyed at, because I grew up on DC stuff, so it's nice getting to have fun consuming DC comics again, because that's what I grew up on. Marvel only became a thing in my life because the movies were happening. My dad didn't read those comics. He brought home Superman and Batman. That's what we read. Anyways, that's a tangent, but it's another thing that is a part of my life right now. And I'm almost done. Well, actually, I technically finished the DLC for Horizon. I think I still have like an errand and a side quest, but like I finished the main arc of the story for it. So I'm gonna get back into Horizon, maybe finish that maybe by the end of the month. That'd be wild. And then I can play Witcher. If you want to leave an emoji or tell me what you've been up to, reading, watching, playing. But if you don't want to respond to any of those prompts or anything I've said in this video, let's do an emoji that is a wolf for Far From the Light of Heaven. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!